learners. Welcome to today's tourism lesson. My name is Evans Maponya. This lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saibono Discovery Center. For your questions during this lesson, if you have clarity-seeking questions, you can reach us on this WhatsApp number 079 578 2908. Let me quickly repeat the number. It's 079 578 2908. So in today's lesson, we seek to address the knowledge area which is entitled Foreign Exchange. The topic and the subtopic under discussion remains foreign exchange. Now let's go through the matter. Here are your lesson objectives, grade 12. That at the end of the lesson, you must be able to know the following. You must be able to know what the term gross domestic product means. In short, it's GDP, or the acronym for the gross domestic product is GDP. And we are going to look into how it benefits the South African economy. We are also going to look at the concept of multiplier effect and how it is linked to the GDP, your gross domestic product. We are also going to compare the strong to the weak rand. We're also going to look at relative strength and relative weakness of the currency at specific time. We are going to interpret a currency rate sheet. We're also going to convert the major currencies as compared to the South African rand. And we are going to convert the South African rand into selected currencies to understand the buying power of different currencies. We are going to use only exchange rates as expressed in 1 unit of the foreign currency. The value in rand, that is 1 USD, is equals to 17 rand 60 cents. Calculators may be used when you are confronted in a situation where you have to convert one currency to another. We must always not forget to round off after the comma to the 2 decimal units or 2 decimal fraction. As you can see here, is 34.56 as indicated as an example. As we proceed with the lesson objective, what also you need to know is the difference between bank selling rate, shortened as BSR, and bank buying rate, whose acronym is BBR. We're also going to look at the effect of exchange rates on international tourism, affecting both inbound and outbound tourists, and how this influences travel patterns of South Africans traveling to developing countries as well as to developed countries. We are also going to look into fluctuation in exchange rates. grade 12 learners. I'm going to unpack each of the objectives, each of the concepts that we have mentioned here during the lesson. Let's look at as to where this lesson will be assessed. This lesson forms part of your examination paper, and it is assessed in section B of the final examination paper, and that is your question 3, and it is also assessed in section A, that is your question 1, short questions. So it appears in these two sections, that is section B and section A. You'll also be assessed on this section, on this topic, in controlled tests that you'll be writing for this academic year. You'll also be assessed, or it will be assessed during the skills assessment task. It is also going to be assessed in the PET, as well as in the preliminary examination, and of course, every examination, including the final examination, this topic will be featured. This is just a mind map illustrating what I have just mentioned, the objectives of this topic. Remember, our main topic is foreign exchange. So these are categories. All these are categories of foreign exchange, or where foreign exchange applies. Or these are some of the items that you will have to understand and know to understand foreign exchange and how it works. So we're going to look into these items, or in these categories of foreign exchange as listed on the mind map. We have alluded to the fact that you need to understand what gross domestic product is and how it benefits the South African economy. So, in other words, we are going to define the GDP during this lesson. We are also going to assess how the gross domestic product affects or benefits the South African economy. So two things, the definition as well as the impact GDP has on the South African economy. The second aspect that we'll focus on is fluctuation in exchange rate. What does fluctuation mean? We are going to talk much about this concept of fluctuation. It simply means the rise and fall, the increase and decrease in the currencies of the world. So as we compare the currencies, we should understand that they are not stable. They are not sitting at one place. Certain time, they are strong, and during some other time, they are weak. So fluctuation suggests that there will be an increase or a decrease in the exchange rate in the currencies that we will be looking at. We are also going to look at the effect of exchange rate on international tourism, how the exchange rates affect movement across the globe, how foreign exchange determines where to travel at what time, during which the currency is either weak or strong. We will look into that. We are also going to differentiate between bank buying rate and bank selling rate. This is quite crucial when we go into calculation of or conversion of one currency to another. We need to know as to which rate must be applied. Of course, we are going to try by all means to explain the two concepts in BBR and BSR, bank selling rate as well as bank buying rate. Grade 12 learners, we are also going to look at the questions that you might come across when converting one currency to another. So we look into how certain currency is either weak or strong, and this will help us to understand this concept that is known as buying power. How much power do you have in the pocket? How much commodities, how many products can you buy? Are they going to sell cheaper or expensive for you? And that is what the buying power tries to explain. We are going to interpret the currency rate sheet. This is a table that gives us the performance of a particular currency as opposed to another. The performance, or how weak or strong is a particular currency as compared to other currencies of the world. We are going, that information will be supplied from the rate sheet. We are also going to look at the relative strength and weakness of a currency at specific time. Remember, we have indicated that currencies fluctuate. Money does not stay the same all the time. The things that you used to buy for 20 Rand in around 2010, today those items will cost you a fortune, or more than 50 Rand or 50 Rand plus. So it tells us that the value of money does not stay the same all the time. Grade 12 learners, we are also going to look into the concept of multiplier effect and its link to GDP. So we'll try the best we can to explain the concept of multiplier effect, and we're going to try the best we can to link it to the gross domestic product, that is your GDP. I hope you are following grade 12 learners. Now, let us look at the concepts that forms our foreign currency as a topic. Now, what is currency? The currency refers to money. This can be in the form of a paper or coins, and it is used as a medium of exchange for goods and services, for products and services. We use money. If you want a good like bread, you'll have to give the seller money, and the seller will give you the bread. So it's money that is represented in the form of paper or coins, and you give the supplier of goods and services in exchange for those goods and services. So exchange here suggests that the service provider will get money and you as the buyer will get the product. I hope you'll clearly manage to define what currency is. The next concept is local currency. What do we mean when we say this is local currency, or this currency is of local value. The currency of a particular country where a transaction is being carried out, the currency that is used in a particular country where buying and selling takes place is referred to as foreign currency. I'm going to give you an example. The local currency for South Africa is rands, and so this is our local currency, as I've said. It's represented by notes or paper as well as coins. Grade 12 learners, be aware that when you move from South Africa to countries such as Botswana, you are not going to use the rand. So when you get to Botswana, you need to exchange your rands, and they will give you the pula. The currency in use in Botswana is pula. So they will exchange your rands into pula, and thus pula becomes local currency in Botswana. You get to Botswana with your foreign currency, which is rands. So you exchange it into pula yako Botswana, and then you start using the pula in Botswana, because pula is the local currency of Botswana. You are not allowed to use rands. Though in certain circumstances, because we are in the one geographical region that is SADC, you may use the rand, but in actual fact, the local currency for Botswana is pula. The local currency for Zimbabwe is Zim dollar. The local currency for Lesotho is Maluti. So the local currency for in our country is South African rands. You cannot use Zim dollar to purchase goods and services in this country, because it is not our local currency. You need to go to the foreign exchange agencies in the country, that is your commercial banks and other institutions that exchange currencies, so that you have relevant currency that is used in South Africa. So that would be your rand. I hope you have internalized this concept. A foreign currency refers to a currency or currencies not belonging to your own country. So the US dollar is not a currency for us as South Africans, but we will need to use it when we visit the United States of America. We are not going to use our local currency when we visit countries abroad. This one is the euro. This currency is used by the European Union, countries in Europe. Most countries in Europe, except a few countries such as the United Kingdom, they are using the sterling or the pound, British pound. So grade 12 learners, all these currencies represented here are not our own currencies. They are foreign to us. They are used in foreign countries. So when you visit the United States or the European Union, you are expected to change your South African rands into either the US dollar if you are visiting the United States of America, and the euro if you are visiting countries such as Spain, Italy, such as Germany. So you'll be expected to change your rands into euros, so that you use the currency that is applied in that country. So all these other notes that we are not familiar with are foreign to us, then they are referred to as foreign currency. Foreign exchange. Foreign exchange suggests the practice of converting one currency into another currency. An example here has been indicated on the pictures of currencies represented here. So you have 200 South African rand note, and if you are visiting the United States, you have to exchange it into the currency of the country that you are visiting. And in this case, you are exchanging the rands into US dollars. So foreign exchange suggests converting one currency into another currency. So in ordinary language, we say we are swapping. So when we swap money so that I can get access to the goods and services of a specific country, that is our concept foreign exchange. As we move further, other than foreign exchange, there is a rate of exchange, which is a concept also important to us when we do foreign exchange. The rate of exchange implies the value of one country's currency in relation to another country. How much is the worth of a currency of a specific country compared to that of another country? So two currencies have been juxtaposed here. Grade 12 learners, as you can see here, we have a comparison of the South African rand as compared to the US dollar. And here, during this time in question, one US dollar was equivalent to 18 Rand 59 during this time in question. And this slide is the value of the rand as opposed to that of a euro, and 1 euro was equivalent to 20 Rand 24, as you can see. Now, if we compare the two values, we would say in terms of value, in terms of power, the euro is more than the US dollar during this time in question. So 18 Rand 59 will buy you 1 US dollar, whereas 20 Rand 24 will buy you 1 euro. So in terms of value, the euro is greater than the dollar during this time. And it doesn't stay like that. There are some indications, some situations where the euro is of higher value or it is stronger than the euro. So hence we have alluded to the concept of fluctuation. So these amounts do not stay the same. They can change at any given time in question. So rate of exchange suggests the value of one country's currency in relation to another currency. So the acronym for rate of exchange is RU. So the rate of exchange will determine how much foreign currency you will receive when you exchange your money. The next concept, grade 12 learners, that you need to understand is that of fluctuation. Fluctuation, as I've indicated earlier, it refers to the changes in currency value in relation to another, that the currency does not stay the same. And this graph here indicates various times of the day where currencies perform at its highest and where it performs at its lowest. As you can see here, in one day, it was at its lowest, as you can see, and after 5 days, we can see that increase, and between 5 and 1 month, you can see that it has dropped, it has risen, it has dropped again, rose, dropped, rose, as we move on up until the end of the year, and its maximum for that year was somewhere in the 20s, and this was mainly referring to the fluctuation of the euro as opposed to the rand. So certain times the rand becomes stronger and certain times the rand becomes weaker. That's where you see an increase in the performance of the euro. I hope you are following grade 12 learners.
Attitude of gratitude. What does that mean? An attitude of gratitude is the quality of being thankful. It's the quality of giving thanks. Ubonga, ulebuha. It's to be grateful. You and I have so much to be grateful for. You and I have parents who make sacrifices day and night for us to be at school. You and I have people who believe in us when we don't believe in ourselves, who love us when we don't love ourselves, who invest in us.
Grade 12 learners, my apologies about the technical glitch that we have experienced. It is now addressed, has been solved. So let us continue. And I've been explaining the concept of fluctuation, where we say at certain given time, the rate or the exchange rate will be higher, or the currency will perform at its highest, and certain time it will fall. So it will either rise or fall depending on the variables of the economy. Here are your facilities where foreign currencies can be exchanged. That is places where you can buy or sell your money in favor of the other. That can happen at commercial banks. You can also exchange your currency from foreign exchange dealers. It is also exchanged at foreign exchange bureaus, at the travel agents, in hotels, and on cruise ships. These are areas or places where you can be assisted if you want to exchange one currency to another. The gross domestic product is one of the concept listed on the objectives of the lesson that you must understand. The GDP, by definition, refers to the total value of all goods and services produced in a country over a period of 1 year. Grade 12 learners, when you are asked in a test or in an assessment to define GDP concept, you must include all the key words that are involved. Now, I'm going to underline for you the key words involved in the definition of GDP. Firstly, we refer to the total value. The total value or the total amount of all goods and services that are produced in a country in 1 year. These are your key words in your definition. All these words that I've underlined must feature. The total value of goods and services produced in a country over a period of 1 year. That defines what GDP is. If GDP is rising, the economy is good. If the GDP realizes some increase, then it represents a healthy economy or a good economy, and the nation is moving forward. The nation is developing or developed. If GDP is down, the economy is in trouble and the nation is losing ground. The nation is unstable. If the GDP is low, the economy is in shambles. The economy is regarded as poor performing economy, and the nation is losing ground. It's losing touch. In summary, the diagram here represents the gross domestic product, which we said refers to the total value of all goods and services that are produced in a country over a period of 1 year. This is just a schematic representation to make you understand what GDP is. And as you can see here, we are saying the total value of all goods. Here is an industry producing goods and services. Here is a flight which offers some services to tourists. This is an example of a service, and goods are being produced here, production happened here, and services are rendered here, and all these are produced in one country in 1 year. So this is just a summary of gross domestic product. Let's look at the contribution to the GDP of different sectors of the economy as represented on this pie graph. As you can see, agriculture, which is represented by this blue on the pie, contributes 2.1%, and the manufacturing industries represented by this green color contribute its contribution is 16.5, and as we look into another large contribution which comes from the wholesalers, the retail, motor trade, and catering and accommodation. I'm just only pointing out on the biggest contributors to the gross domestic product. And as you can see, this one at 20% is finance, real estate, and business services. We also have this light green also, which represent general government services, and we also have this blue color, which represents construction. Grade 12 learners, this is the stake of each of the sector of the economy and their contribution to the GDP percentage wise. We're going to move forward, grade 12s. Let's look at the benefits of the gross domestic product growth to the South African economy. So now we're linking the GDP to the South African economy. So here are the benefits as indicated here. One, it leads to income generation. Tourists visiting South Africa spend their money on products and services of the country, and in that our benefit is the income that they live, the income that they use to buy our goods and services. So we generate money, we generate funds from the services that we provide to tourists. It also helpful in the creation of job opportunities. It creates employment for South African people. So those tourists visiting our country have a need for services, and who provides those services are the people that are employed in the industries. The general workers who do the cleaning of the rooms that they use for accommodation, who wash the bedding and whatever services that people from the restaurant provides to tourists, whatever drivers of shuttle vehicles do provide to those tourists, it is in one way or another an employment opportunity for that people. So employment in underdeveloped areas and other areas where tourists are visiting. That is one benefit. It also leads to infrastructural development. Tourism stimulates the infrastructure and development thereof, improving the living condition. So by infrastructure here, we are referring to roads, the bridges, the telecommunication network. We are referring to also the schools, clinics, the hospitals that are, the recreation facilities that are built. So having or hosting tourists from different countries help us to improve infrastructure, because they will need to move in between the attractions. We need to maintain and service certain facilities that we have. So the money that we get from tourists help us to improve the facilities in a country, and thus improving the living condition or the quality of life of local people. It also leads to skill development. People, local people or these workers will receive training as chefs, as cook. They will be trained on entrepreneurial skills. So having those tourists will help us train our people or skill our people in certain areas of life. So this can be explained as education and training program of local people help them to improve and manage resources. That is upskilling local people. So has a benefit of education and training to the local residents. Now, let's look at the multiplier effect as another concept that we need to look at. The power of travel, as indicated here, how foreign currency contribute to the South African economy. As you can see here, you have pictures of tourists visiting our country. They spend their money on services such as transport, that is air, road or land transport, as well as the rail transport represented by trains. So they would spend money to receive these services, these transport services, and in return for these services, they will have to pay a certain amount. Grade 12 learners, they also use the services of travel agency to prepare for their journeys or for their trips. They need to use facilities such as halls, such as convention centers for their meetings, and they pay for some money. They need food and beverages. They will pay for accommodation other than transport, which was indicated before, and they will pay for amusement, recreation facilities, and they will also have to pay money for entertainment. Right. These people you see here are people who are employed in these sectors that we have alluded to, in the transport sector, in the accommodation sector, in the entertainment industry, in the food and beverages in the form of restaurants, and any other area that provides service will need workers to provide those services. And these workers in return get salaries and wages. So as you can see, this money that was used for transport, that was used for food and beverages, that was used for accommodation, further pay salaries for these people. And these people will use these salaries to get services in the form of they will have to do shopping, buy for clothing for their children, buy food. They will also pay for their children's school fees. They will pay for medical facilities that they receive in the country. So the money that was generated from the tourists filter down into transport, filter down into accommodation sector, filter down into paying the wages and salaries of workers, and the government will charge taxes on the workers' salaries to provide further services, government services to its people. So money that is generated from tourism does not only, or is not only used to sustain the tourism sector, but it goes into different sectors of the economy. That is referred to as multiplier effect. So here is a step-by-step explanation of multiplier effect. It says, as I've indicated, tourists spend money when traveling. The money goes into local economy. This money is then spent to buy by local businesses to purchase goods and to pay for their employees. This re-spending of money expands the local economy and creating a multiplier effect. That is a step-by-step explanation that we get money from the tourists. This money goes into the local economy. This money is spent by local businesses to purchase further goods and services and to pay for the workers, and the workers will spend their money. So this whole spending is referred to as the multiplier effect, and it has a positive effect of building the local economy. The multiplier effect and how it's linked to the GDP. The value of the expenditure is multiplied and has a positive economic effect. The value of the money that we spend is multiplied and has a positive economic effect. Money spent in a particular area helps to create jobs. Jobs in turn create demand for further or for other products and services in the local economy. Money therefore filters through to all levels of the economy, and that is how the multiplier effect is linked to the GDP. I hope you understand that we use money that was paid for local goods. Say, for instance, they will use a taxi and they will pay for their fares, and that money which was paid to the transport provider, the owner of the business will pay his workers using the very same money. He will buy further goods and product, or he will expand his business by buying more taxis. So as you can see, he got this money from tourism, but he spent it in the transport industry. He spent it for paying local workers, and therefore the fact that money does not stay in a particular sector, it moves across, or it filters down to all levels of the economy. That is a multiplier effect, and it has an impact on the growth of the economy. The buying power of the rand, the amount of foreign currency you can buy with rand is referred to as the buying power of the rand. So if you can buy $10 with 1 rand, it means the rand has more buying power as opposed to the dollar that you are buying. If the rand can buy a lot of other currency, we say the rand is strong in relation to the other currency. If rands can buy you 10 pula, then we would say the rand is stronger than the pula. If the rand can only buy little of a particular currency, we say that the rand is weak in relation to the currency. As with the previous examples that we have, you would realize that you'll spend plus minus 18 rand to get $1. So meaning that the rand as compared to the US dollar, it's weak because 1 US dollar can buy 18 rands. The concept of strong and weak rand, the rate of exchange determines the strength of the country's currency. RU, as alluded to, refers to the rate of exchange. It is the one that determines whether the currency of a country is strong or weak. The strength of the South African rand, which is internationally represented as ZAR, compared to other currencies, for example, 1 USD is equals to 9 Rand 04. In this comparison, the South African rand to the US dollar would say the South African rand is weak. There are times when the South African rand is stronger, it's performing better, and during those periods, we refer to it as a strong local currency. The strong rand, the foreign tourist will receive less rands for their currency. Foreign tourists will receive less money to spend. Long-haul destination becomes an expensive option. South Africa is perceived as an expensive destination. Inbound tourists will visit for a shorter period of time or will not visit at all because they may not afford. Tourism will contribute less to South African gross domestic product, and the economy will decline, and it can lead to job losses. So it is of paramount importance to keep the South African weaker because it becomes a cheaper destination and it attracts a lot of tourists into the country. So these are conditions that we find ourselves in when the South African rand is strong. So we'll receive less visitors. South Africa will be, things in South Africa will be regarded as expensive, and eventually more people will not come at all or will receive few numbers of foreign tourists. The weak rand, it will attract more inbound international tourists to South Africa. Foreign tourists will receive more rands for their currency. Foreign tourists will have more money to spend, or would say greater spending power in the local economy during their visit. A greater demand for tourism products and services is created as the international tourists will spend more money in South Africa. Foreign tourists will get more value for their money and will therefore spend more and more. As we proceed with conditions around the weak rand, an increase in demand for tourism products will lead to growth in the GDP and will have a positive impact into the economy. So if the rand is weak, then it leads to an increase in demands, and this has an impact of growing the gross domestic product, and it leads to growth in the economy, which is a positive aspect for us. More job opportunities are created. Tourism can retain their original budget and have more money at their disposal. So when we sell our goods, or we sell more products than expected, then it means we keep our capital or the money that we used to start the business, whereas we have some reserve to spend or to grow our business. Tourists will be able to reduce their original budget, making their trip less expensive. Tourists will use the opportunity to purchase more foreign currencies needed for their intended journey. Tourists might extend the length of stay. So the weak rand has both benefits to the local economy as well as to the tourist. Relative strength or weakness of the currency at a specific time. This can be influenced by political unrest or political instability, the acts of terrorism, high crime rates, natural disaster such as drought, water crisis, unforeseen events, diseases outbreak, economic recession, negative credit rating and junk status, corruption in government, discovery of new or large amounts of minerals resources, hosting of successful global events, interest rates, as well as positive and negative image of the country in media reporting. Grade 12 learners, all these influences, all these variables that we have just alluded to can either make the rand or the currency to be weak or strong. So we have mentioned them. Please know them and check if they have a positive or a negative impact to the strength or the weakness of the rand. Political unrest, instability, acts of terrorism, all these factors will scare tourists from visiting the country, will chase away potential tourists, making our products less sold. So this will weaken the currency. So natural disasters, drought, water crisis, like in the same scenario of political unrest, will scare away tourists. So this has an impact on the strength of the currency. Unforeseen events, diseases, outbreak, economic recession also will scare away our tourists. But if we have a large discovery of mineral resources, then we attract the whole world. So we attract more tourists, in particular business tourists, who would like to make more money. Then they will flock into their country, and that has an impact on the currency at that specific point in time. So it has an impact to the economy of the country where the minerals have been discovered. So hosting of successful global events also leads to positive word of mouth and has the benefit of attracting more visitors into the country. So high interest rates will also scare tourists away because things will be expensive and it is not good for the economy. As we alluded to in the objectives, we indicated that we are going to interpret the currency rate sheet So a currency rate sheet refers to a list of rates of exchange at which foreign currencies are bought and sold. Refers to a sheet with a comparative table that indicates how much is a certain currency compared to other currencies of the world. This rate will determine how much foreign currency you will receive when you exchange your money. Foreign currencies are displayed by a three-letter code that you must also bear in mind. The first two letters refers to the name of the country, and the third letter refers to the currency. Most currencies have a symbol to indicate the currency. So this is a template or an example of a currency rate sheet. As you can see, in the code we said we use a three-letter code for US dollar. The code is USD. For the Great British Pound is GBP. For the countries in the European community, it's Euro, EUR, and the Australian dollar is AUD, and the Chinese yuan is CNA, and the Japanese yen is JPY. All these are three-letter codes representing a particular currency, and the symbols are as indicated here. This one for the US dollar, this one for the euro, for the British pound, I'm sorry, and this one for the euro, this one for the Australian dollar, this one and this one for the Chinese yen and Japanese yen, respectively. Now, the exchange rate, as you can see, the bank would buy foreign currency, in particular the rand. For you to, a person with US dollars will buy a rand at a value of 18 rand 14 cent. With a British pound, will buy a rand, or if you want to buy a British pound, the bank will buy it at 22 rand 56, and the euro 19.55, and as indicated here, the Australian dollar at 11 rand 19, the Chinese yen and the Japanese yen at 2 rand 51 and 0.17 cent, respectively. So the bank will sell this at these prices. So here is what the bank will use to buy, and this is what they use to sell. So always, as you can see, the bank sells at a higher price and they buy at a cheaper price. In all these instances indicated here, you can see that the bank sells at a higher price and they buy at a cheaper price. Rounding up to 2 decimal places, as you can see, as you use your calculators to convert these currencies, you'll come with a long figure like this one, and that is not how the money is expressed. You cannot have a money like this with so many numbers. So you are advised to round off to 2 decimal fraction after the comma. And how do you go about? These are the steps indicated. So if you are to give 2 decimal places, it will be 3 rand 14 cent, because the third unit is less than 5. 1 is less than 5, so we remain with 3 rand 14 cent. So here is another example on my right hand side. It says 12 and 9999 after the comma, and it will be 1099, the first 2 decimal. But as you can see, 9 is greater than 5, meaning that then it will be 1 this side, and if we add 1 to the 99, it becomes 1, which we have to move on the other side of the comma, so that we remain with 13 rand. this is how a demonstration of how you should go about when converting to two decimal places. Bank selling rate and bank buying rate. Bank selling rate refers to the rate at which the foreign exchange dealers, for example, commercial banks, will sell foreign currencies. So when you are to visit, say for instance, United States of America, you will need to change your South African rands into US dollar. So you go to the commercial bank and the commercial bank will sell the foreign currency to you. So this rate is determined by the bank. So they will use a certain rate to sell you the amount of foreign notes. Bank buying rate. So when you return to the US and you still have US dollars with you, you will have to sell your dollars to the bank, and the bank will not use the bank selling rate. Instead, they will use the bank buying rate. They buy foreign currencies from you. So bank buying rate refers to the rate at which foreign exchange dealers or commercial banks will buy foreign currency. So when you return with US dollars into South Africa, you know for a fact you may not use such currency because to purchase local goods and services, because it is not used in South Africa. So you need to sell it to the bank, and the bank will buy from you at a cheaper rate. So the bank buying rate is always less as compared to the bank selling rate. We'll get more clarity on the application of bank selling rate and bank buying rate when we indulge into calculations or conversion of foreign currency. Bank selling rate and bank buying rate always higher than the bank buying rate. So the bank selling rate is always higher than what the bank use to buy from you. So that is how the banks make profit. The bank make profit because they buy at a cheaper price from you and sell at an expensive price. So the bank buying rate is always lower than the bank selling rate. Grade 12 learners, please internalize this. Bank selling rate is always higher than the bank buying rate. Grade 12 learners, I would like us to take a 5 minutes break, and when we get back, we'll proceed and see if we cannot get to the conversion of currencies. Can we take a 5 minutes pause, and when we bounce back, we'll continue with foreign exchange. Welcome back, grade 12 learners. Remember to contact us via WhatsApp if you have any challenges or queries that you want to raise. We are contactable via WhatsApp on 079 578 2908. 079 578 2908. Welcome back, and let's proceed where we have ended. Grade 12 learners, the sections that we have discussed before break is the theory part of foreign exchange. It is mostly assessed in paragraph questions as well as in short questions. You are expected to discuss at some point the impact of a weak rand, the negative impact of a strong rand, and so forth. You have all those narrative and completes our theory part. And then we are going to now look into the practice part, the practical part of it, wherein you are given a scenario to convert one currency to another. Let's look at what are the steps involved when converting major currencies of the world. You are going to be given an exchange rate table as indicated here. Here, two currencies have been juxtaposed. That is the British pound or the sterling. It's being compared to the South African rand. On the rate sheet, you'll have the name of the currency in question, as well as the bank buying rate and the bank selling rate. As we have alluded to, the bank selling rate is always higher as opposed to the bank selling rate, which is always lower. So the currency or the money that you have is indicated here, but let us read through the whole instruction. Upon their arrival in South Africa, Gareth and his mother exchanged 4,000 Great British Pound for South African rand. Calculate how much they received in rand. Round off your answer to 2 decimals. So the currency they have, or the money they have, is 4,000 British pound. The currency in rand you will have after the exchange will be expressed in rands. They have the British pound and they want to convert this pound into rand, meaning that in your answer you will have the money expressed in rand, not in Great British Pound. So let's go through the steps. The first one, you must decide if you must multiply or divide by the rate of exchange when doing the calculation. Convert. Whenever you convert from the South African rand to major currencies of the world, you always divide. When you want to convert South African rand into other currencies, you always divide. When you convert from major foreign currencies to South African rand, if you want to change foreign currencies into South African rand, you always multiply. So we'll see, as in the case of the 4,000 British pound that Gareth and his mother wanted to exchange. So they have 4,000 upon their arrival. So we want to convert this 4,000 into South African rand. So the first step, we have determined that because we are converting foreign currency, which is Great British Pound, to South African Rand, we are going to multiply as indicated here. So we are changing a foreign currency into the South African Rand. So the rule says we must multiply. Convert measure currencies. Establish the rate of exchange to be used, whether you use the bank buying rate or the bank selling rate. Now, because we are, the bank is buying foreign currency, we will use the bank buying rate. So the bank will not buy local currency. You cannot exchange a rand to a rand in a bank. So the bank always will buy foreign currency if it's in a South African context. So you cannot go to the bank to say, I want to buy the rand. So you will be selling foreign currency and the bank will always buy foreign currency. So when you convert in a South African situation, the British pound to the rand, it means the bank will buy from you. So they will use the bank buying rate. So when you exchange the foreign currency to South African rand in South Africa, then the banks in South Africa will use the bank buying rate. They will buy from you foreign currencies at a cheaper price. But the scenario changes when you want to buy foreign currencies. If you are a South African, you want to buy British pound from the bank, they are not going to use the bank buying rate. Instead, they are going to sell the notes to you and they will use the bank selling rate. So in this scenario, because the bank buys foreign currencies from Gareth and his mother, they will use this cheaper rate, which is the bank buying rate. And if you multiply this by 1802, this will be your answer. So it says do your calculation, show all step in the calculation, round off to 2 decimal places. The currency you have, that is the British pound, multiplied by the bank buying rate, the currency you will have after the exchange, it will be 4,000 British pound multiplied by the exchange rate, which is 18 Rand 02, that we got from the bank buying rate, and this is the amount you will get in South African Rand. That will be 72,080 Rand. That completes the answer. Can you see here the rounding off is done? It's 00 at the end. Right. Can we move on? The effect of the exchange rate on international tourism, that is for outbound tourists, South African outbound tourists, if the rand is strong, South African outbound, those tourists leaving South Africa will be more likely to travel to international destinations. So if the rand is strong, South African will visit international communities because outbound travel will be more cheaper. The value of the rand is more, so they will be able to buy commodities, products and services in foreign countries. So we are likely to have people leaving South Africa if the South African rand is strong. So we are referring to those people leaving the country. And let's look at inbound tourists that are coming into the country when the rand is strong. South Africa will be regarded as an expensive destination. When the rand is strong, it means when the foreign tourists visit or inbound tourists come into the country, they will get less when they exchange their currency to the rand. So South Africa, they will buy less products and services. They will not stay long in the country because the things will be expensive. It is because they have received fewer rands in exchange of their currency. International inbound tourists may consider travel to cheaper, more value for money destination. So if South Africa is expensive, then they will look for cheaper alternative places to visit. That is the effect when the rand is strong for both outbound and inbound. Inbound will leave South Africa and they will buy products and goods from foreign countries at a cheaper value, whereas those who are visiting South Africa will find South Africa an expensive destination. So it is important to maintain the health of the rand. It shouldn't be up too much and it shouldn't be low that much. So that has to be controlled by economists in the country. When the rand is weak, let's look at the two scenarios. South African outbound tourists will find expensive travel when they want to travel to international destination. So when the rand is weak, it means you are going to buy less of foreign currency and you'll find things in those countries very expensive. South African will choose destinations where they will receive the greatest value for money. So they will opt for cheaper destinations if the rand is weak. So inbound tourists, many international inbound travelers will visit South Africa if the rand is weak because things will be cheaper in South Africa and South Africa will be regarded as value for money destination. It will be regarded as a cheap destination and thus will attract a lot of international tourists. A fluctuation in exchange rates, changes in the value of a currency in relation to another currency. Currencies fluctuate based on supply and demand. How much they can buy and from which source of supply, as well as the demand of such goods and product. How is the demand line? If there is a greater demand, it means the business will run smoothly. And those two variables control the fluctuation in the exchange rate. Supply and demand are linked to various factors. For example, the country's monetary policy. So it is the policy or the legislation that governs the economy of the country, and it's controlled by the Minister of Finance in the country. The rate of inflation, as well as political and economic conditions in the country. Those are the factors that control fluctuation of the currency. Fluctuation of currencies in international tourism, inbound market. With a stronger foreign currency elsewhere, South Africans will travel within the borders of their country. So if the foreign currency in Lesotho is high, people will opt to travel locally instead of moving out of the country. With a stronger foreign currency, foreign tourists will visit South Africa as a destination. Outbound market, with a stronger South African ZAR, South African rand, tourists will be more likely to travel to foreign currency and will be affordable. Influence on travel patterns. With a favorable rate of exchange, tourists are encouraged to travel. Tourists from rich countries will travel South Africa. They will receive more rent for their currency. They will perceive South Africa as a cheap destination, spend more money here, more and longer stay when visiting to South Africa. Let's look at this activity just to test our understanding. It's activity 2, study the information and forex table below and answer questions that follow. South African University Choir has been invited to perform at an international music festival held in London, that is the United Kingdom. The members of the choir each received 610 rand spending money. Here are your exchange from the exchange rate sheet or table. The country is United Kingdom, United States of America, and the exchange, the code GPB for United Kingdom and United States, you have USD standing for United States dollar, right? Here are your BBR, the bank buying rate and the bank selling rate. Here it's when you exchange foreign currency into rands, then the bank will use the bank buying rate. But when you buy foreign currencies, the bank will use the bank selling rate. 2.1, it says, calculate the amount in pounds that each student received when they exchanged 610 at the Exchange Bureau at OR Tambo International Airport. Round off your answer to 2 decimal places. Show all steps of your calculations. So here is the marking guideline. Remember, when we exchange South African rand to foreign currency, we always divide. So we are going to divide the South African rand by the bank buying rate, which is 24.71. Why bank buying rate? Bank selling rate? Because the bank is selling to this South African their foreign currency. They are not buying the rand. We cannot buy the rand. Instead, we will buy foreign currency. So this is what they will get in pounds. They will get from your calculator, you'll get 25 pounds, British pounds, 0.237898 This has to be rounded up to 2 decimal fraction, and we look at the third number, it's greater than 5, and it means we are going to take 1 and move it to the next, and it becomes 25.24 cents. This is how this calculation is done, and I hope you've been following. And today I've given you 2 sides of the coin: when you convert foreign currency into South African rand, and when you convert South African rand into foreign currency. So remember, when you convert South African rand into foreign currency, we always divide, and when you convert foreign currencies into South African rand, we always multiply. When they returned to South Africa, one of the choir members exchanged 26.35 pounds at the Foreign Exchange Bureau at OR Tambo International Airport. Calculate the amount in rand he received. Round off your answer to 2 decimal places. Show all the calculation. So this time we are now going to use, the bank is going to use the bank buying rate, because the bank buys foreign currency from this person. So, and remember that when we change foreign currency into South African rand, we always multiply. And this is what this choir member will get, 613.955. So it's 613 when we round off to 2 decimal. This is 5, and 5 will give us 1. That is add up to the 95, and we have 61396. That would be your answer to the calculation. Grade 12 learners, this is the end of our discussion of this chapter or this topic, foreign exchange. Please, you need to revisit it and do all the calculation, conceptualize all the concepts that we've discussed, and put it in the bag. I trust you have had a nice session, and we have clarified all the misconceptions that we've had about foreign exchange, and we have simplified as much as we can the topic. So for the next topic for discussion for the next lesson, you'll meet us right here on this platform just in time on the 22nd of May 2025 at 14:30 to 1600 hours. The topic that we'll look into its World Heritage Sites. So we'll see each other next week, the 22nd of May, and the topic that will engage with its World Heritage Sites. Thank you for being such a nice audience. Till we meet again. Thank you, Grade 12. Hope you'll work throughout this chapter during this week until we meet next time. Thank you so much.